At my son's wedding, I was seated by the bathroom, so I snatched my gift and left. The wedding was spectacular, the kind you see in movies, but it was completely ruined by one small detail. My seat. Right there next to the bathroom. I could hear the toilet flushing every few minutes. I swear it felt like I was part of an unfunny sitcom. People shuffled in and out, some oblivious to the wedding magic happening just a few feet away. The laughter, the I do's, it all faded a little, muffled by the sounds of plumbing. I gripped my gift, a beautifully wrapped box, perfect for my son and his new bride, like it was my last link to sanity. You wouldn't believe how many odd things happened at that wedding. First, there was the sheer number of mismatched socks peeking out from under fancy shoes. Every time someone danced near me, a flash of neon or polka dots invaded my space, making me wonder if there was some kind of sock rebellion I wasn't aware of. As if that wasn't enough, the DJ seemed possessed by a desire to mix country music with techno beats. It made no sense. The guests exchanged confused glances, but no one dared to speak up. Was this part of some bizarre prank? My heart raced, a lump formed in my throat, and all I could think of was escaping without being rude. Tables adorned with flowers held secrets in every centerpiece. I caught snippets of whispers, fights in dark corners, friends sharing sneaky laughs over spilled secrets, but nothing prepared me for what happened next. A hush fell over the crowd. Was it the sound of an argument? Or was I imagining it? I leaned in, ears straining, only to be interrupted by the sound of another toilet flushing. My psyche battled between disbelief and laughter, as tensions bubbled just beneath the surface. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Then, just as I was about to make my getaway, the bride appeared before me. Her face, white as a sheet, looked as if she had seen a ghost. "Mom, we need to talk," she said, her voice trembling. My heart dropped. What was wrong? My mind raced ahead like a freight train. What could possibly be this urgent right now? I turned to the door, then back to her, 100 possibilities flashing through my mind. What was happening behind the scenes? A knot twisted in my gut. I could already feel the weight of something bigger than this silly seat assignment bearing down on us. And the mystery only lingered, looming heavy like a storm waiting to break. The bride's eyes darted around the room, and a bead of sweat trickled down her temple. I couldn't ignore the panic rising in her expression. The music faded into a muffled hum, a distant backdrop to the chaos brewing between us. "What's going on, sweetheart?" I whispered, leaning closer, desperately trying to keep the wedding buzz from overwhelming my senses. "It's about Tom," she said, her voice quaking like a garden leaf in the wind. The name of my son sent a spear of dread straight through my heart. Tom was the glue holding this wedding together. The reason everyone gathered, smiling and dressed to impress. He's in the back room. He's upset. My palms went clammy. Upset? Why? What happened? I felt like I was on a roller coaster, and the drop was imminent. Was it the socks? The DJ? The toilet seat? She looked over her shoulder, as if the very thought of Tom's distress was a monster lurking just out of sight. He saw something. He thinks. She hesitated, swallowing hard. The words hung in the air like a thick fog, oppressive and heavy. Thinks what? The urgency spiked in my voice. I was ready to bolt, leaving this nightmare of a seat behind. He thinks Dad is here, she finally confessed. The room seemed to tilt dangerously on its axis. My husband, after all these years? I had meticulously hidden the details of our tumultuous past from Tom, trying to protect him from the truth. What do you mean? He can't be here, that's impossible. My pulse drummed loudly in my ears. He is, she insisted, her voice barely above a whisper, panic creeping in. I saw him outside earlier. I didn't want to believe it, but Tom is convinced. He's been acting strange since. Her words trailed off, leaving a chasm of uncertainty. My mind raced like a wild stallion. What would happen if Tom confronted his father? What kind of a scene would that create? Would it ruin the day? My heart felt like a lead weight dragging me deeper into fear. I need to see him, I said, more to calm my own racing thoughts than anything else. As we made our way through the crowd, the festivities continued around us, a contrast of smiles and dancing, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing in the shadows. I felt the heat rise in my cheeks, a mixture of anxiety and anger. Tom! I called out, my voice lost in the chaotic chatter. We reached the back room, the door slightly ajar. I pushed it open, anticipation coiling tightly in my chest. Tom stood there, shoulders hunched, staring at the floor like it was the answer to life's biggest questions. The air felt thick with despair. Hey buddy, I said gently, stepping inside. He looked up, his eyes red-rimmed and wild, disbelief and hurt swirling in them. Mom, what if he's telling the truth? What truth? The desperate clench in my stomach tightened further. What do you mean? Just then there was a loud bang from outside. The door rattled as if something had struck it. The room froze. Every breath felt electric, the air laden with a new urgency. What was that? Tom's voice was shaky. The laughter from the wedding stopped abruptly, leaving a suffocating silence in its wake. I took a step back, dread pooling in my chest. I don't know. Before I could finish, the door burst open, and a figure stood silhouetted in the doorway. A gasp rippled through the room, a deadly silence following. My heart dropped. What was about to unfold? Was it truly my husband? Or something even worse? The moment had arrived, and everything was teetering on the brink of chaos. I took a breath, bracing myself for whatever came next. But the next instant shattered my reality into a million pieces. The figure in the doorway took a step forward, the dim light casting an ominous shadow over his face. My breath caught in my throat as panic flared among the guests who crowded just outside. Whispers surged through the throng like a tidal wave. Is that really him? What is he doing here? Dad? Tom's voice broke the silence, raw and trembling. I felt my insides contort at the sound. Yes, Tom. It's me, the figure rasped, a twisted smile breaking through the darkness. There was something unsettling about his tone, a chilling familiarity that sent shivers racing down my spine. The years fell away, and suddenly it wasn't he, just my husband standing there. It was the ghost of the man I once loved, mixed with the monster who had haunted me for so long. Get out! I shouted, a desperate surge of protective fury boiling over. I stepped in front of Tom, my heart hammering in my chest. How could he dare? You have no right to be here. Just hear me out, he said, raising a hand as if to calm the storm. I've come to see my son. I didn't want to miss his big day. Your big day? I spit back, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. You don't get to ruin this. Not now. He stepped into the room, pushing the door wider as the sound of muffled chaos seeped in distant gasps. A flurry of footsteps retreating from this revelation. Tom stared back at me, confusion and hurt twisting his youthful features. Mom, what is happening? Why is he here? I thought he was gone. Fresh dread washed over me, thick and suffocating. The truth spilled out like a shield shattered by fire. My husband had become a phantom in my life, a nightmare I thought I'd escaped. You remember the stories I told? About his bad choices? Yes, my dad, Tom blurted, an insistent waver in his voice. Why can't I just talk to him? Because he'll break your heart. I cried, feeling the urgency of the moment like a rhythmic pulse demanding attention. How could I let him go down this path? The figure's smile faded, replaced by a hardened glare. You've poisoned his mind against me. You need to let him decide for himself. The tension hung thick in the air, vibrating with unspoken accusations. I felt every set of eyes focused on us, the wedding guests suspended in horror, caught between the promise of joy and a darkening storm. Tom, please, I began, my voice trembling. But just then he stepped forward, breaking the fragile barrier between us. I watched as my son moved closer, drawn to the darkness, the mystery of the father he barely knew. Let me just see him, Mom, he pleaded, his eyes wide and desperate. Tom, I started, but the plea caught in my throat. The world felt as if it was spinning. I couldn't afford this moment of weakness. Not now. Without warning, the figure lunged forward, reaching for Tom, and panic flooded my system. My instinct kicked in. I leaped, throwing myself between them. Stay back! I screamed, a primal fear igniting my every nerve. But then, a loud crash erupted from the other end of the room. pulling attention away from us, and every heart seemed to stop. What was this now? The chaos had escalated, inviting chaos in a way I didn't foresee. And sitting on that dangerous precipice of decisions and emotions, I realized this wasn't just a family reunion gone wrong anymore. It was a collision of everything I'd hidden, everything I'd fought to protect. What had I really unleashed by allowing him to appear? And would I lose my son in the coming storm? Get away from him! I shouted one more time, but the darkness was creeping in, and I could feel it tightening around us like a vice. Just then, in the echoes of that chaos, something even more alarming entered my mind. What if he was right? What if Tom needed to know the truth no matter how painful? And as uncertainty settled in like a heavy fog, I wondered if it was too late to protect him from the storm that was about to unleash. The air had shifted, cluttered with a mix of fear and excitement. I pivoted, consumed by the chaotic wreckage of emotions. My eyes darted toward the wild crowd of guests, their faces pale as they processed the scene unraveling before them. Murmurs escalated, filled with a frightened curiosity that tightened my chest. "Mom, I just want to understand." Tom's voice broke the suffocating silence, the vulnerability in his plea slicing through me like a knife. I could see it, the yearning for connection swimming in his wide, innocent eyes. It was the reflection of the child who once sought solace in my arms, yet clashed brutally with the reality of the man who claimed to be his father. "Understand?" I spat back, desperation tightening my voice. "Understand what? That he walked away from us? That he threw away everything that mattered?" My heart felt wrenched, torn between a protective instinct and his need for answers. "Let him choose." That familiar rasp slithered into my ears, laced with poisonous allure. "You've held him back for long enough." I took a deep breath, willing myself to stay vigilant. Choose? What would he choose, really? My gaze never left Tom, pleading for a semblance of understanding of what lay ahead. What can he possibly learn from a man who has done nothing but cause pain? The figure remained unmoved, his own madness reflected in his eyes. Time slipped, blending moments into a thick haze. The far-off sounds of wedding bells were muted, swallowed by the tension thickening around us. Then, out of nowhere, a crash echoed from the corner, glass shattered, laughter turned to screams. For a heartbeat, everything came to a standstill, a tableau of frozen horror. Panic ignited and guests scattered. "Tom, we need to go," I urged, gripping his wrist with an intensity that bordered on desperation. But my son hesitated, his eyes locked on the man in front of us, mesmerized by the turmoil raging through him. "Stop it. You're scaring him," the figure roared, his patience unraveling. He took a step forward, and those shadows that clung to him felt like fingers reaching toward my son. "Don't come any closer," I shouted, holding my breath as if it would somehow solidify the space between us and keep Tom safe. In a fleeting moment, the crowd flipped into a frenzy. Guests rushed for the exits, shouts mingled with frantic whispers. Faces contorted in terror were painted into a backdrop of my own horror, my heart pounding almost painfully against my ribs. "Mom, I need to talk to him. I just need to know." Tom pulled away, a spark igniting in his eyes, a spark of rebel defiance mixed with desperation. "Tom! No!" Instinctively, I lunged to him, fear clawing at my throat. But before I could grab his arm, I felt the hands of an old friend, Claire, pull me back. "Let him go, Sarah," Claire cried, her voice barely audible over the chaos. Her grip was strong, bidding me to yield to the inevitable storm swirling in front of us. "He has to find his own path." And in that heartbeat I faced the truth. This was Tom's choice to make, regardless of the turmoil it would bring. The figure leaned closer, a twisted smile reshaping his features as he spoke softly, his cruel words eclipsed by the raging storm that surrounded us. All I could do was watch, rooted to the spot, as my son edged closer to the darkness I had fought so hard to keep him from. As the tumult grew, the climax of this day threatened to engulf us all. And just when I thought my heart couldn't bear another blow, the lights flickered above us, and the whole place dipped into shadow. "What is happening?" Gasps filled the room, underscored by the creaking of old wood. And then, like a whisper drowning in a tempest, I heard his words pierce through the noise. "You'll wish you hadn't kept Tom in the dark, Sarah." Suddenly, the room erupted into chaos, a shattering of glass and laughter, pulsating with fear. But in that blinding chaos, amidst the screams, One question swirled in my mind: what was I truly willing to sacrifice to keep the shadows away from my son? The lights sputtered, flickered, and then went out entirely, plunging the room into a suffocating darkness. In that instant, my heart raced as if the world around me had vanished. The only sound I could hear was the breaking of glass echoing in the distance, and the frantic gasps of guests who were no longer just faces in a crowd but terrified souls seeking escape. "Tom!" I called out, panic lacing my voice. I held my breath, straining to hear anything that would lead me to him. Darkness wrapped around us like a heavy cloak, amplifying every noise, every breath. The world had taken a sharp turn, and here I was stuck at the center of it, unmoored and desperate. "Mom! Where are you?" His voice broke through the chaos, trembling yet determined. Relief poured into my chest, but there was no time to savor it. "I'm here. Keep talking," I shouted, trying to hone in on his voice, feeling my way through the crowd, which had devolved into confusion and despair. Suddenly, the emergency lights flickered on, casting an eerie glow across the hall. Faces were mid-turn, eyes wide with terror as they searched for explanations. I spotted Tom just a few feet away, inching closer to that sinister figure who still stood hauntingly calm amidst the unrest. "Stop!" I screamed, hoping to reach through the chaos before it was too late. It felt like a slow-motion nightmare. The closer Tom got, the more my heart sank. Shadows danced around that man like a sickening mist, and I knew he was a conduit for the chaos sweeping through the hall. "Let him go." I felt a surge of authority. I pushed forward, my instinct to protect him fueled by the rising tide of fear. Claire stood beside me, eyes wide, but she didn't say anything. She simply watched, waiting for the inevitable. Thomas' eyes met mine, and I could see the struggle within him, caught between the frightening charm of his father and the protective mantle of a mother who would do anything. My breath came shallow, my fingers trembling as I reached for him, desperate for connection. "No, Mom. I need to hear what he has to say." There it was, that rebellious spark ablaze in his eyes. A spark I had once nurtured but feared it had now turned into something dangerous. "You don't understand. He's not who you think he is." Even as the words left my lips, I struggled to merge my fear with the reality that lay ahead. My son stood on the precipice, leaning toward a darkness I had been desperately shielding him from. "What if he is?" Tom shot back, his defiance cutting me like a knife. "What if he can answer everything you have in tea?" My heart sank. "You think he has answers? He is just a lie wrapped in temptation, Tom." The figure leaned down, whispering something inaudible that made Thomas' jaw clench with determination. The moment stretched taut between us, and I felt the world spinning out of control. "I have to know the truth." Tom's voice rose above the din, loud and unwavering. Then the lights flickered once more. A low rumbling noise echoed from somewhere deep in the recesses of the hall, vibrating through the very floor we stood on. It felt like an ominous drumbeat announcing an approaching storm. "Mom, please. Just let me go." And in that moment I hesitated, torn between the instinct to protect and the urge to trust. What did this journey hold for Tom? What shadows lurked just beyond in the depths of that choice? "Tom!" I shouted, adrenaline surging as I fought through the panic. "This isn't a choice. It's a trap." But the look on his face hardened. Just as the ground began to quake beneath us, and echoes of screams reverberated once more, I knew I was losing him. "Tom!" My voice pierced the air, desperate and raw. "Don't walk into that ruin. It will consume you." The lights flickered one last time before plunging us back into darkness. I felt Claire's hand tighten on my wrist. "We have to get out now," she urged, but as I turned back toward where I had last seen my son, a chilling thought gripped me tight. What would it cost to save him from the shadows threatening to swallow us both? I bolted forward, heart pounding, fear clawing at my throat, and when I next called his name, would it be too late? The darkness pressed in on me, heavy and suffocating. I stumbled forward, hands reaching out, feeling the cool, slick surface of the wall against my fingertips. Voices rose around me, a dissonant symphony of panic and confusion, but all I could hear was the thumping of my heart against my rib cage. "Tom!" I shouted again, forcing the sound out through clenched teeth. I could sense the crowd shifting, the oppressive weight of fear enveloping us all. Then, the emergency lights flickered back on, illuminating the chaos. Shadows clung to every corner like predators stalking their prey. I scanned the room, searching for Tom but intrigued by the figure that loomed like a dark sentinel at the center of the commotion. Was he really as calm as he seemed? Or was he just a spider weaving a web of deception around my son? Mom! Tom's voice again, this time closer. I could feel the pull of his desperation, mixed with something darker. Stay where you are, I barked, feeling the primal instinct to protect wash over me like a tidal wave. I shoved past frantic guests, weaving through their panicked faces until I reached Tom, whose features were caught in a struggle between fascination and fear as he stood inches from his father. Step away from him, I demanded, my voice echoing through the noise, but all I felt was his father's dark charisma wrapping around Tom like a velvet glove. Can't you see? The sinister figure murmured, his voice low and honeyed. This is where it all starts. The truth you've been shielded from. Embrace it, Tom. My breath hitched. How could he do this? How could this man, this aberration of my worst fears, manage to reach my son in a way I couldn't? Tom, please. I felt desperation clawing at my throat. Don't listen to him. Tom hesitated, the flicker of doubt crossing his eyes as his father leaned closer. I could see how the allure of answers was suffocating his resolve, drawing him nearer to that insidious promise. He has power you'll never understand, I shouted, but Claire's grip tightened on me, pulling me back. This isn't just about you. This affects all of us. Behind us, the crowd swelled with an energy of fear, eyes darting around for answers. Then a sharp scream pierced through the tumult, jolting everyone. People spun around, gadget phones igniting in the darkness, but they only illuminated more chaos. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath us, a surge like a beast awakening, and a series of cracks traversed the floor. It was a warning, a harbinger of something much more sinister lurking beneath our feet. Tom! I cried again, my mind racing to think of a way to reach him. What would it take to bring him back? A whispered conversation echoed behind. Something stirred in the shadows, an elusive figure slipping away through the chaos. My instincts screamed. Was there more at play? Was this just the beginning? The lights flickered, casting strange shadows over the crowd. I caught a glimpse of Tom finally wincing as if awakening from a trance, uncertainty playing across his features. Just trust me, he shouted, but the ground continued to rumble, a low growl promising to shake the foundations of our reality. In that moment, a horrifying realization gripped me. What if Tom was right? What if this was the path he needed to take, no matter how dark? Before I could answer, the lights died again. An ear-piercing crash followed, forcing everyone to stumble backward. And then whispers gathered in the pitch-black gloom, chilling me to the bone. Let him decide. They echoed, insistent and relentless. Tom! Don't do this. I roared, but I felt the distance widening between us. What kind of truth could possibly lay behind that veil? And was Tom prepared to face it? As panic surged anew, I unfolded my options. Would I stay and fight to pull him back from the brink? Or go further into the unknown, dragged by compassion over fear? I took a breath, feeling the edges of sanity crumbling. Whatever happened next would change everything. Tom! I shouted one last time, heart racing as the ground beneath us lurched violently. Would he hear me? Through the cacophony? Would the choice be taken from him before he could grasp it? A deafening silence swallowed the chaos, leaving only a hard thud of my heart, and the fading echoes of my desperate pleas. The air vibrated with tension, like a tightrope ready to snap. Every second stretched indefinitely as I wrestled with what to do next. Suddenly, the lights blinked back on, brighter and more disorienting than before, casting sharp silhouettes around us. Tom stood frozen, pride and fear battling within him, his gaze locked on his father's eyes. I felt fury bubbling up, an insatiable need to surge forward. Tom, listen to me, I shouted, my voice thick with urgency. He doesn't care about you. He only wants to use you. The dark figure chuckled softly, as if my words were mere flutters against iron. You don't understand, dear wife, he rasped. The power he can wield, it's intoxicating. His eyes gleamed, a flash of madness illuminating the shadow of his face. Let him feel it. And just like that, my son's expression shifted, enticed. A glimmer of intrigue ignited within him, the temptation of forbidden knowledge lighting a fire in his eyes. My stomach twisted. I stepped closer, hands trembling at my sides, desperate to make him see reason. Tom! Please don't give in. You have so much ahead of you. Don't let him drag you down into this abyss. A growl rippled from beneath our feet, as if the ground itself was protesting. Distant screams began to tear through the fear-laden air again, reverberating through the tension, and I glanced at Claire, who looked as pale as the wedding cake icing. She inched away from me, her eyes darting toward the exits like a caged animal searching for a way out. We need to go, she whispered frantically, but all I could think about was Tom. My world balanced precariously on his decision. Suddenly, from behind, I felt a presence. A cold, clammy hand rested on my shoulder, sending ice racing down my spine. I whipped around to confront a stranger, face shrouded in darkness, eyes glinting with an unnatural hunger. You've underestimated the true nature of his power, the figure crooned. And soon it will be too late to stop him. I pushed past the shadow, heart thundering, propelling me forward. Tom! I screamed out again. He seemed to recoil, a moment of doubt flashing across his expression. The earth trembled yet again, and a long crack splintered through the ground. Mom! He yelled, panic rising in his voice, and it felt like a lifeline. I don't know what to do. You choose, son. I shouted, feeling tears prick at my eyes. Choose us. Choose life. The figure beside Tom hovered closer, whispering sweet temptations of power, swirling words of confidence as if he were spreading threads of silk around my son. Don't listen to her, she's afraid. He hissed sinisterly. Embrace what you could be. The crowd was a sea of shifting bodies, all uncertain, whispering to one another. Fear was palpable, swirling through the air as more people fell into the chaos, eyes wide, glancing at the shifting floor. At the arcs of darkness coiling tighter around my son, I took a step deeper into the chaos, reaching out toward Tom, but the darkness loomed. A sudden flash illuminated the area. Lights exploded into brilliance, casting away shadows for a fraction of a second, revealing faces twisted in horror and disbelief. Then the lights flickered and went out, leaving us fearing what lurked unseen. Tom! I pleaded again, the anguish tearing at my soul. Fight it! In that moment, a rumbling roar erupted from the floor, and the ground shook violently, echoing through our bones, threatening to swallow us whole. And then I heard it, a voice. Not the dark one, but something deeper, primal, resonating from the cracks and chaos, echoing inside the cavernous darkness. Let him decide. Before I could process it, a tremor rippled beneath me, sending me off balance. I stumbled, grasping for anything to hold on to. It felt like gravity itself had twisted against us. Mom! There it was again, a desperate call that snapped at my heart. But then the shadowy figure drew closer, the thick presence wrapping around Tom like strangling ivy. Join us, it whispered again. I had to act fast. Would I curl back and accept the chaos, or lunge in and risk it all? In this moment, a thought hung heavy in the air. What if once he decided, there would be no turning back? What choice would I make to save him? Tom! I shouted one last time, voice raw with despair, the vibrations of the reverberating darkness around us closing in. And in that minimum of uncertainty, I knew the battle for his soul had just begun. The ground quaked violently, a primordial roar echoing through the chaos that surrounded us. I steadied myself, panic clawing at my chest as I strained to hear Tom's voice over the cacophony. Every heartbeat was a desperate plea, a silent prayer that he would feel my presence, that he would choose me over this encroaching darkness. Tom! Focus on me! I shouted, the words tearing from my throat. I reached out blindly, my fingers trembling as they sought a connection with my son. The air crackled with static, electrifying the atmosphere. The strange figure loomed, whispers curling around him like a serpent ready to strike, his malevolence palpable. Suddenly, the lights surged back to life, flickering ominously as if they, too, were uncertain about what was unfolding. In that brief moment of illumination, I caught a glimpse of Tom's face, fear painted across his features, uncertainty wrestling with temptation. My heart shattered. He was standing at the edge of an abyss, teetering on a precipice above an unfathomable void. I don't know. His voice broke and a tremor rattled through him. I seized the moment, desperation clawing at the walls of my resolve. Remember who you are, Tom. This isn't you. I screamed, pushing through the crowd of terrified faces. They recoiled, mouths agape in anguish or delight at this dark spectacle, as blurred figures thrived on the fear surrounding us. You belong to me, my son, the shadow hissed, caressing Thomas' shoulder, its fingers ethereal, dark and oily. You can be more than you ever dreamed. Power awaits, but at what cost? My voice trembled with anger and fear, mingling like my thoughts, each word a breath held back for an eternity. Is power worth your soul? The floor shuddered again, and flicks of darkness darted toward Tom, as if weaving a web designed to entrap him. The crack in the ground widened, a gaping maw that threatened to suck him into endless darkness. Tom! I lunged forward, my heart racing like a wild thing inside my chest. With a primal instinct, I grabbed his arm, pulling him back as the figure tried to ensnare him further into its grasp. Choose. Choose me. You have to resist. Claire's voice suddenly broke through the thrumming insanity, her eyes blazing with a courage I wished I could claim. Fight him, Tom. Fight. But there was a flicker, only I saw the struggle within him barely contained. It was as if I could see his heartbeat, two rhythms colliding, one of fear, one of ambition. The stage was set for a decision that could change everything. A flash ignited the room again, white hot like a flashbang, illuminating the faces of those who watched, their expressions morphing from confused horror to sheer terror. The shadowy figure glared, fury etched into its features. It was losing control. Make your choice, Tom. I pressed, my voice rising with every heartbeat. You may not get another chance. The air thickened with that sharp tang of electricity, and I felt Thomas' hand tremble against mine. I clung on harder, as if my life depended on it. You are my light, you can't lose it. In a wild, frenzied moment, Tom jerked free, stepping back to look at his father, then at me, fear and defiance etched into his young face. The shadow fumed, a dark curse swirling on its lips. Suddenly the crowd gasped, as another tremor racked the earth beneath us. Choose! I screamed one last time. Every ounce of hope waited in my voice. Time hung in the air, a heavy, suffocating breath. But then all hell broke loose. The ground erupted, sending shockwaves rattling through our bodies, bright flashes of chaos darting around us like flaming arrows. A howl pierced the air, a mixture of rage and desperation, but what came next would haunt me forever. Tom! No! But I could barely contain the growing darkness as it reached for him, and just like that, he was engulfed. In that chilling moment I realized my son had made his choice, but I had no idea what it truly meant, and as I fell to my knees, the vision before me blurred, a mixture of smoke and sorrow. I felt a heavy void as darkness began seeping into the cracks spiraling around me. What had he chosen? The echoes of my unanswered questions swirled around me, tightening their hold. Could I reach him again? Or had I lost him forever? The room shook around me, reverberating with my shattered hopes. I could hardly catch my breath as I knelt, the weight of the ground pressing down like a lead curtain. Shadows danced heavier than before, clawing for dominion over the space where Tom had only just stood. Had he really chosen? A painful pang twisted in my chest. Was he lost to me now? The crack in the earth widened, becoming a gaping maw, consuming every flicker of light left in the stunned room. Desperate whispers cascaded through the crowd, gut-wrenching cries of disbelief. There were faces I recognized, faces I loved, now twisted in horror and confusion. I looked up, wild-eyed, scanning the sea of familiar fear. Claire stood at the edge, her hands balled into fists, determination etched in her features. Don't give up, she shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos like a beacon. We have to fight. Fight? But how? How could we battle something so insidious, so entwined in the very essence of Tom? My mind raced as I struggled to regain the small thread of hope I felt before the darkness engulfed my son. I rose unsteadily to my feet, the tremors of the earth guiding my movements. Tom! I called again, my voice raw and desperate. If you can hear me, fight back. You have the strength. I know you do. The air shimmered, pulsating as if reality itself was warped, twisted by the figure that had claimed my son. The whispers grew louder, a sinister melody that drowned out everything else, a symphony of seduction promising unimaginable power. Suddenly, a growl erupted from the abyss, the shadowy figure appearing even more monstrous. It loomed over the gap, its eyes glowing with a malevolent hunger. He is mine now, it taunted, its voice a slithering whisper that scraped against my mind, chilling me to the bone. But another flicker caught my eye, and it wasn't he, just the shadow. Somewhere beneath the chaos I could see Tom. Images of him emerged in flashes past birthdays, laughter by the lake, the proud look on his face when he learned to ride a bike. Each memory battled against the darkness, igniting something deep within me. Tom, you're stronger than this. Remember who you are. Remember us. With every ounce of desperation I possessed, I reached toward the void, my heart pouring out as if tangible. The light within me felt like a flare, igniting the darkness surrounding my son. For a fleeting moment, I caught a glimpse of him, the shadows shrinking, battling the brilliance that was his very spirit. The crowd watched, horrified yet entranced, as the palpable struggle unfolded before us. I felt something shift, a tremor of recognition, a spark as Tom took a faltering step back from the shadow. But it was met by an eruption of dark tendrils, snaking around him, drawing him closer to that sinister figure. No! The word tore from my throat like a wounded beast. I lunged forward again, desperately reaching, my heart racing with raw emotion. Tom! Fight him! You're not alone. And then the vibrations beneath us shifted again, more forcefully. The rip in the ground yawed wider, billowing black smoke that swirled like a tempest. I stumbled as the shockwave knocked me down, fear slicing through my thoughts. A collective gasp wafted through the crowd, faces turning pale, eyes wide with panic. The shadow was building, growing larger, a dark storm gathering strength. Desperation clawed at my throat. Tom! I called out one last time. Silence enveloped us, hanging in the air, as if everything paused awaiting an answer. Then suddenly the figure seemed to recoil. Tom's voice broke through the silence, a whisper barely audible over the chaos. Mom, I don't want to be like him. The ground shook again. But this tremor felt different, a pulse of resistance. The shadow swayed. Now it was the darkness that felt vulnerable. Hold on, Tom. You're almost there, I urged, my heart hammering wildly as I braced for what came next. But before I could even process the shift, the connection snapped. A deafening roar erupted from the figure, a sound so raw that I couldn't help but shudder. I glanced at Claire. Wonder, fear, and an unspoken plea mirrored in her eyes. As chaos erupted around us once more, questions flooded my mind. Could I truly reach him in time? Or was I standing on the precipice of losing him forever? My chest tightened, and I stood frozen at the edge of it all, the weight of everything crashing down. I had to act, and quickly. What would I sacrifice to save my son from this darkness? The unanswered questions circled above me like vultures ready to claim what was left of my hope. Would I jump into the abyss to bring him back? And that thought alone sent a chilling realization shuddering down my spine. Could I pave a way back through my own sacrifice? The darkness swirled, and I felt new dread creep in. If I leapt, would I even find him again? The decision loomed thicker than ever. But somewhere in the swirling chaos, Tom's voice called again, faint but clear. Mom, and suddenly I knew. The fight wasn't over yet. I took a deep breath, the weight of the moment pressing down on me, heavy yet invigorating. Tom! I shouted, pushing past the chaos flooding the hall, my heart racing. You don't need to choose him. You have a life that's waiting for you. You and me and everything we can be. The ground trembled again, dark tendrils gripping at Tom, threatening to pull him into the void. No, not my son. Not now. Mom, I can't get away. The panic-laden desperation of his voice broke my heart. I willed myself to take another step forward, the chaos swirling around me like a thunderstorm, my entire being focused on him. Tom! Push back against it. You're a warrior, don't let it steal you away. I felt my own emotions growing wildly within me, love, fear, hope, and defiance all fused into one powerful force. Each heartbeat pumped adrenaline through my veins. I had to reach him. The shadowy figure flinched as if my words struck a nerve. He belongs to me, it screamed, its voice a cacophony of dread and fury tethered in darkness. You've lost him. No, I roared, pushing through, my soul ignited with resolve. You will not claim my son. The shadows rippled, reeling back slightly like an animal recoiling when threatened. Fight it, Tom. Remember every moment you've ever loved. Remember your joy. I shouted again, drawing strength from not just my love for him, but the belief I had in what he could become. In that moment of vulnerability, I saw the flicker of recognition in Tom's eyes. A spark ignited. It was fragile but steady. Mom, I don't want to be trapped. He cried out, his voice trembling, tears shining in his eyes, emotions wrestling within him as he faced the dark promise of power. Then choose love, I yelled, and suddenly the tumult quieted, leaving only the pulse of my heartbeat in my ears. The words hung in the air, filling the void where despair had threatened to settle. It was nevertheless simple, yet it struck a chord. My son was more than just flesh and blood. He embodied hope, resilience, and love. A surge of light erupted from Tom's heart like a wildfire, illuminating the darkness that encircled him. It carved a path through the lingering shadows, creating a wave that pushed against the figure's grasp. The fiend hesitated, ensnared by uncertainty, its confidence wavering. No, it shrieked, but the more Tom embraced the light, the more the darkness began to recede. I could feel it now, Tom's heart battling back against the void, igniting the very essence of who he was. I see it now, he cried out, strength resonating through the words. I don't need his lies. I have my own path. And then with a fierce roar, the darkness flinched, retreating as Tom stepped back, no longer under its spell. The light swelled bright, encompassing him and bursting forth, engulfing everything in its warmth. The malevolent figure reeled backward, realizing it was losing control, the shadows around it disintegrating as hope flooded the space. Tom, come to me. I held out my hands, willing him to cross the threshold into safety. The deafening silence now filled the room with determination, a shared breath amongst those who had gathered. In that moment, with his head held high, Tom crossed the chasm between us. My heart soared, an electrifying rush of love and gratitude washed over me. As he reached out, my fingers entwined with his, our connection felt unbreakable, forged in the crucible of fear and love. And just like that, the grip of darkness shattered. The figure screamed in agony, sent spiraling backwards, swallowed by the very shadows it had wielded. As the light pulsed with joy, it obliterated every remnant of darkness that had threatened to tear us apart. A shining brilliance engulfed our surroundings in a breath of fresh air, casting away the turmoil and allowing warmth to take its place. With wide eyes, every gaze in the room landed upon us. Relief washed over the crowd like an ocean tide, taking with it the weight of despair. They began to cheer while Claire rushed forward, wrapping us in a frenzy of joy, tears shimmering on her cheeks. You did it. You reached him. Tom squeezed my hand tightly, his gaze steady as he pulled me into his embrace. I couldn't have done it without you, Mom. His voice was soft but resolute, leaving no doubt of the bond we now shared. Then a hush fell over the crowd as the moment transformed. It was the wedding we had waited for. The celebration reborn from chaos. Laughter bubbled in the air, echoing like the sweetest symphony of life returning. We stepped back into the warm space filled with love. Guests held each other tight, laughter woven into tears of relief, the darkness no longer casting its shadows. Instead, we realized the power of hope, of understanding, and the unyielding drive to protect those we cherish. Welcome to your life, Tom. I smiled widely, a new dawn breaking on the horizon, full of hope and promise. Let us make it beautiful. As we basked in the sweet chaos of celebration, a wave of renewal washed over me, and in that moment I knew for certain. We had conquered the darkness, and together we would embrace the light. Now is the time for you to join this amazing journey. If you love this emotional conclusion, you need to subscribe now and become part of our story. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Smash that like button to feed the algorithm, as we continue exploring the power of love and resilience. And flood the comments section with your reactions. Let us talk about what this ending means to you. You never know the next adventure awaiting us, so let us stay connected.